Yep, so we are going to be diving back into our top fives today. We are finished with the offense. All love to the Iowa State offensive linemen. I'm sure there's a lot of great ones out there, but it is tough to track those stats, as we said last week. So if we do not do a top five offensive lineman, it's not because we don't know about them. It's because there's too many to choose from, and we appreciate you if you're a former Cyclone offensive lineman. So we're moving on to defense today. We'll be doing top five defensive line of all time. And then we're talking about your number one recruiting class of 2027 Iowa State Cyclones. Rocking the Jamarian Bateman NIL shirt today. Shout out our guys over at Cyclone Fanatic and the shirts they make over there. So a lot of fun stuff to talk about. We're in the middle of the off season, so we gotta figure out things to talk about because there's no more Texas Tech drama and no more Milan Momchilovich drama, and we've had quite the couple weeks, Owen, over here at Cyclone Central, and it feels like it's all kind of tempered down now.
Yeah, no, and it's really honestly just because of the Brennan Sorsby situation and all the drama and chaos that brought throughout the weeks. But now that that's kind of cooled down, come to an end, we can start getting back to these top five rankings and talking about other stuff like AJ said, the fact that Iowa State has a number one recruiting class in the country for the 2027 college basketball season. So that's going to be fun to talk about and keep track of throughout the summer and leading up to this basketball season. So AJ, I think we're good to go ahead and start listing off our top five best Iowa State defensive linemen in
Yeah,
Iowa State football history. So I'll let you lead off with number five here.
yeah. So again, this is defensive tackles and defensive ends. If you're curious about top five defensive tackles and defensive ends, over at Cyclone Kingdom, we're gonna do different position groups for that. But for today, it's the top five overall defensive linemen, which is tough because when you think about it, I mean, I had 10 to 12 guys written down. There's a lot of guys that can be on this list. There's not a lot of parity with defensive tackles, but when you get to defensive end, it gets very interesting. So I'll be curious to see what direction you go in, Owen. But to kick us off at number five, this was a guy in the Dan McCartney era in the height of the Cy NATO helmet, if you will. If you imagine someone in a Cy NATO helmet in a white Iowa State jersey, you probably picture Sean Moorhead. Sean Moorhead is the number five best defensive lineman of all time for me. Just a dog of a football player. Was a great just kind of core of those Iowa State defenses. Keep in mind, Iowa State defense wasn't really known for being very good until Matt Campbell and John Haycock arrived. So Sean Moorhead being on this list tells you just how good he actually was at the defensive end position. He played a little bit of linebacker, which you and I talked about a little bit on off camera. So he kind of moved around a little bit, which shows you just how much of a Swiss Army knife he was. But played for the McCartney era, was a great defensive player, had very key sacks. I think I remember him having a key sack in a Cyhawk game and some other Big 12 games. So he definitely played in the big moments and made plays in the big moments. But the only reason he's not higher is because it was in the era of Cyclone football that people would like to forget, and that is the post-Seneca Wallace kind of era. And that was kind of a tough time for Iowa State too. You know, think about how Dan McCartney left and then Gene Chizik coming on, and it was a rough spot for Cyclone football. But wanted to give Sean Moorhead respect because he deserves to be on this list simply by talent alone. A shorter guy, not super big, but made up for it with his tenacious play. So Sean Moorhead's number five.
Yeah. And he's my number five as well. So me and AJ are starting off right on par with that. Had 14 sacks in just his 2 years at Iowa State, which is, like AJ said, pretty impressive stats there. Had one interception as well his senior year, so something that you don't usually see from defensive linemen. However, there is a guy further down this list that had more than an interception, had more than a fumble or a fumble recovery, and we'll get to him shortly here. But definitely an impressive stat line, and yeah, I agree. Sean Moorhead fits perfect at that five spot.
Yeah, no, he's great. And again, the Cy NATO helmets, bring them back. Bring him back. It's cool to see Jimmy Rogers embracing the Cyanado phase. So number 4 on the list is a recent guy, and I mean very recent. And I went back and forth, even up until we hit record, on whether or not to put this guy here because am I showing recency bias? Am I not giving credit to the other guys? And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, no. From a defensive tackle standpoint, this guy's one of the best ever at Iowa State. Big Citrus, Dominique Orange. Just got drafted by the Vikings. So he's going to show out. I think he's going to start in Minnesota, which is pretty cool. But Dominique Orange, over 300 pounds, and you would never know it. The guy moved like nobody you've ever seen before at Iowa State from defensive tackle. Right? Defensive ends move in a certain way where they're supposed. I mean, you're going to hear guys, in a couple minutes as we give our top 3 that are just absolute gamers. Right? Dominique Orange played at nose guard or right off a nose guard, so he doesn't really get all the glamorous snaps or all the glamorous plays, but he sure made up for it. He made the Iowa State defense. Keep this in mind, guys. With John Haycock, they were a 3-3-5 defense. A 3-3-5. What that meant is you were basically giving up the middle and saying, we hope you can't run on us because we're going to take away the pass. Think about the West Virginia game with Will Grier and them just causing hell on earth for Will Grier by just making him run around the pocket for 15 seconds. Well, a part of what made the 2024 team so great is you also couldn't run the ball in the 3-3-5 because Dominique Orange was in the middle. And I'm not talking about Dominique Orange and somebody else. It was Dominique Orange by himself clogging up the run lanes and allowing, a Will McDonald or allowing an Orion Vance or allowing these linebackers to come down and make tackles. So I have to give Dominique credit for that. He also had key sacks in big moments, which from a defensive tackle standpoint, I mean, I'm a Chiefs fan. I've seen what Chris Jones can do. To see Dominique Orange do that to Iowa offensive linemen, which I guess Iowa's not O-line university anymore then, because if Dominique Orange can beat 2 of your guys by himself, what are you really? He's just
frauds.
Right. He was just that good at getting to the quarterback from the center and guard position. I'm talking about beating double teams and everything. So I can go on and on, but Dominique Orange, he gets so much respect from me. Being a part of the 2024 Iowa State team, which is the best of all time, doesn't hurt either. Being the main nose guard there. So yeah, Big Citrus, got to give him respect. Super talented guy, just off the walls athleticism for being over 300 pounds. He's got to be number 4.
Yeah, and that's a solid number 4 pick. He's probably going to be an honorable mention for me. Kind of maybe more towards that 6 to 8 range. But my number 4 is Jaquan Bailey. So another pretty recent guy. Bailey was a 5-year player. Started off as a freshman. His first year was Matt Campbell's first year, and honestly had a pretty impactful freshman year, totaling up 3.5 sacks, 22 total tackles. So came in and made an instant impact right away, and just kind of got better as the years went on, like a lot of players in the Matt Campbell era that we've seen. But a lot of people, when they think of Matt Campbell, they think of the 3-3-5. They think of John Haycock's 3-3-5 defense. And Jaquan Bailey was the first guy, and I know there's Will McDonald, and we'll get to him later. He's further down the rails, but Jaquan Bailey was the Dominique Orange of the 3-3-5. He was the disruptor, the chaos causer, the I'm just gonna wreak havoc on this offensive line. I'm gonna blow up double teams. I'm gonna beat my guy, beat the offensive tackle to the outside, and get pressure on the QB. And that's why, like you said, we saw games against West Virginia where he was just causing absolute havoc, wreaking havoc on Will Grier and that West Virginia offensive line, because of his speed, because of his hands, his mobility. He is, I believe, the second leading sack record holder, or whatever you want to call it, in Iowa State football history. Had 25.5 sacks in his career. Most sacks he ever had in a season was 2018, 5, and, or no, wait, Yep, it was. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing. Still 2018, 8 sacks, and I'm pretty sure half of those came against West Virginia. But like I said, impactful player, had a great tenure at Iowa State. So number 4, Jaquan Bailey.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just piggyback off of you. He's number 3 for me. What he did in the 3-3-5, so we just talked about Dominique Orange and kind of being the run disruptor. To be Jaquan Bailey's talent level in a 3-3-5 is very impressive. And we're going to get to a guy who is just as, if not more impressive later on this list. But Jaquan Bailey, at that time, and this isn't a hot take, I don't think, was top 5 in the Big 12 in terms of rushing the quarterback. I mean, in terms of game records that could get to the quarterback and make plays, Jaquan Bailey was that guy. War number 3, which I thought was super cool. It was kind of in an era where a lot of defensive ends and defensive linemen wore these large numbers, and we're just kind of like these big old hogs. He was just like this freak finesse guy where he was just, I'm going to get to the quarterback and there's nothing you can do about it. And you bring up the West Virginia game, you think of really any Big 12 game during that era, he was part of the ascension. He was part of the rise of Iowa State football. So when we talk about the Alan Lazards and the Kyle Kemps and the David Montgomerys, Jaquan Bailey's right in that group with them. He was one of those core guys. Again, I'll use the Chris Jones example. The reason the Chiefs have been so good is because they've had a quarterback, a coach, a tight end, and you have to have someone on defense. Well, the 2017 to 2019 Cyclones, that era, you had Brock Purdy, you had Dave Montgomery, and you had Jaquan Bailey. I mean, Jaquan Bailey was your guy. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. That's a Cyclone fan. Like, he was the defense. Without him, you were screwed. And so he deserves to be top 3. Like you said, top 5 all time in sacks in the Big 12, which is awesome. Such a cool thing because we actually have 2 guys in the top 5 in terms of sacks in Big 12 history, which we're going to get to the other one in just a second. But yeah, Jaquan Bailey, really, really cool individual, just great for the Iowa State community, deserves to be top 3 on this list.
Yeah. So now we're getting into the nitty gritty here with our top 3 through 1 picks. And these were really tough. I think the number 1 spot is a little easier, but the 2 and 3 spots, at least for me, were just really hard to pick. And honestly, it could go either way, but I'm gonna have to have Brent Kirby at my number 3. They called him, I guess, Brent Big Play Kirby or Big Time Kirby because this dude had thick sixes, he had interceptions, he was a freak athlete all over the field. Racked up over 100 tackles in his 3 years, technically 2, because in 2004 he didn't play. So in 2 years, Iowa State had over 100 total tackles, 13 and a half sacks. AJ, this is generational talent. This is someone who's a freak athlete who's a 101. And I was like many other guys on our top 5 lists. Wasn't around to watch live, but I'm sure there's highlights of him. I'm sure there's tape and there's film of this guy, and just the monster plays that he made, the impact he had on the team, and so number 3, Brent Kirby.
Yeah, I mean we're basically kind of just stacking chairs with each other. Brent Kirby's number 2 for me. So I thought before I went to the 2019 Cy game that I'd never been to an Iowa State game. That was my first true Jack Trice experience, whatever it is. And the more and more I think about it, the more and more I have like this fever dream in 2005 that I was somewhere in Jack Trice Stadium, and it was actually like a Fellowship of Christian Athletes event that I went to with my dad, and it was Iowa State, Colorado. If you remember Iowa State, Colorado was this team that was kind of, lurking in the Big 12. This is when it was North and South. We were talking about this a little bit last week. North and South divisions and everything. And Iowa State was kind of in the post-Seneca Wallace phase. What do we do now? Brett Myers coming in. We got Todd Blythe. And Brent Big Play Kirby had a scoop and score touchdown in the third quarter, fourth quarter. Actually ended up on ESPN that night, which for Iowa State fans in 2005 was like the best thing of all time. If Iowa State football ended up on ESPN, it was like, whoa. And he was just rumbling and stumbling. I don't know if you've seen the oh, I'm gonna forget it, but the Jacksonville Jaguars, one of the largest human beings to ever intercept a football or something, and the announcer on the call said the earth is shaking when he was running.
Oh, I think I've seen that
You know what I'm
clip.
talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah,
That's what
yeah,
it
yeah,
felt
yeah.
like in Jack Trice that night when Brent Big Play Curvy was bumbling and stumbling 65 yards to the end zone. Is you could literally see Jack Trice shaking because it was loud and because Brent Curvy was making plays. So he's
Yeah,
awesome. He's a really
yeah.
cool guy. He's stayed within the Iowa State community. I've seen him do a podcast with Iowa State guys, which is super cool. So yeah, I was very young, so I don't remember a ton, but I do like. Was I there for that? Was that just a dream? No, that was reality. I was there for the one of the big thick sixes of Brent Kirby's career against Colorado, and yeah, just one of the best defensive linemen of all time for Iowa State, and just the talent and the big playability speaks for itself.
Yeah. So I guess I'm at number two now.
Yep.
AJ's at number one,
Yep.
and this is not a guy that was in AJ's top five, and
Whoa.
so you either A forgot him or didn't think of him, or B could be an honorable mention.
Okay.
But for me, it's gonna be Mike Stensrud.
Okay.
Stensrud was a player in the 70s, defensive tackle in the 70s, Iowa native, is from Lake Mills, Iowa, and th- this guy was a monster. This guy was a Mack truck, someone who you just could not run through, just disrupted offensive lines, interior offensive lines. And AJ is looking at me like he just saw a ghost. He's confused. Have you ever heard of this guy? I mean,
No, I have.
I did research on him and I
Yep.
was like, whoa.
Yep.
So he was an All American in the Big Eight, recorded a staggering 306 career tackles from his defensive line position.
That's wild.
306 tackles. Iowa State Hall of Famer. He topped the conference in sacks, 15 sacks in 1977 when Iowa State led the Big Eight in scoring defense and ranked second in rushing and total defense. So obviously Iowa State, very good defensive team. He was a second round NFL pick by the Houston Oilers, going back all the way to the Oilers there.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, this guy, old timer, and we've had some of those. So if there's any older Iowa State fans, like we said before watching, they probably remember these guys. But Mike Stensrud, you just look at him. There's a few pictures you can just Google him, of this guy, and you just look at him. You're like, holy crap, this dude looks just massive, huge, scary. Your typical, stereotypical 1970s, 1980s big defensive line football player with the big shoulder pads and the helmet with like a the face mask, and it was like a cross face mask, so it had all this. There was like no room to see out of it, so it was just awesome. This dude was awesome. So my number two, Mike Stensrud.
Yeah, I messed up. I totally it was, you know what, it was bound to happen because I was born in 98, and I didn't watch the 70s or 80s Cyclones, so doing research, it was bound to happen that I was going to forget somebody. As soon as you said his name, it took me a second or two to remember who you were talking about, and as soon as you started describing him, I was like, well, that was someone who was supposed to be on my top 5 list. But
It's okay. It happens. It
it
happens.
happens. It won't be the
It
last time it
happens.
happens. But shout out Mike Stensrud. You
Oh yeah.
have a special place in my heart.
Passed away just 2 years ago,
That's
actually.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
I do remember that. I do remember that. So no, shout out to him. He was an absolute mountain. He was an absolute mountain. Number one on the list. I think we can both kind of speak about this guy.
Does this
Um,
continue the streak then? How many? How
dude,
many?
I
How
think
many
yeah,
top fives if we had the same number one?
dude, I think we've had the same number one the entire time. So I'll,
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see if that
Every position group so far.
trend continues. But
But I'll let you determine that here.
yeah, um, Will McDonald is one of the greatest athletes Iowa State's ever seen. Um, let's just stop for a second and not talk about defensive line for a second. When you think about the guys Matt Campbell brought in during his tenure at Iowa State, and you think about their big playability and their talent level and whatever stars they were coming out of high school, I would be remiss if I did not put Will McDonald top 3, and he ain't 3 in that conversation. Freak of an athlete, could have played any other sport he wanted to. Built like an NFL superstar, which, by the way, he's turning into one. Keep in mind, Will McDonald plays for the Jets. If Will McDonald didn't play for anybody else besides the Jets, and I mean literally anybody else, we might be talking about this guy as an all-pro in the next 2 years. The Jets are historic for wasting talent, and unfortunately, there are 3 Iowa State Cyclones on the Jets. So pray for Breece Hall and Kenny Nwangu and Will McDonald. Will McDonald shattered the record books.
Yeah.
Shattered the record books. And you might be thinking, well, there hasn't been that many great pass rushers in Big 12 history, has there? Like, he doesn't have much competition. Guys, remember Von Miller? Remember Texas A&M Von Miller that would just...
I honestly can't think of a better pass rusher in modern Big 12 history than
Yeah.
McDonald.
Like,
Past 10 years.
the guy caused chaos at Texas A&M. Like, Von Miller did terrible things to offensive linemen. And then Will McDonald came in the league and was like, yeah, I'm going to shatter that sack record by 3 sacks? 4 sacks? I'll have to fact check it. But he is clearing away the all-time sack leader in Big 12 history. Clearing away one of the best defensive lineman prospects Iowa State's ever had. Guys, he was a first-round draft pick from defensive line. That's huge. That is unheard of at Iowa State University. And so I want to shout him out. He's been awesome for Iowa State. I don't know if you saw the NFL films when they did the New York Jets, when Aaron Rodgers came and they did the whole Hard Knocks and everything, and it was this huge hoopla. Obviously didn't pan out because Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles. But they did Hard Knocks, and there was an episode that circulated around Twitter among Cyclone fans of Will McDonald going up against, in one of the joint practices, someone from the Texans or something like that. And the lineman looks at him at one point, and he's like, dang, bro. He's like, where'd you go to school? And Will McDonald just stops everything and says, Iowa State. Like, he didn't say, oh, some small school in Iowa. He didn't say, oh, you probably never heard of it. He said it with his chest. He said Iowa State. And that was like so cool for everyone watching Hard Knocks and everyone following Will McDonald's NFL journey, just to see like this guy is representing the Cyclones well. And especially in the NIL era now, we need that. We need a Will McDonald. We need a Breece Hall. We need a Brock Purdy to go take the NFL and take it by storm. Guys, real quick, and then I want to let you go. Breece Hall, Brock Purdy, Will McDonald, all top 10, top 15 at their position. In the National Football League. If you can name 10 to 15 quarterbacks, running backs, and defensive ends better than those guys, I need to know who they are. Because they are not any lower than 15. That is what Iowa State has created because of Matt Campbell. I know we don't think too highly of him nowadays, but the era that he built has to be respected because of guys like that. Because Iowa State's defense was Swiss cheese before that, and Matt Campbell brought guys in and brought John Haycock in and brought Will McDonald in, and in a flash, Iowa State was playing in a Big 12 championship game. Thank you, Will McDonald.
Yeah. Just an incredible athlete at 6'4", 240 pounds. I mean, just the way he moved, the way he was able to shed blocks. I mean, he was just so fast. Had the speed of a fast linebacker, but the strength of a defensive tackle, which is just a freak human athlete. And I should point this out. Only had 3 offers coming out of high school: Iowa State, New Mexico, and Wisconsin.
Yep.
And so this wasn't a guy. He was a .86 on 24/7's rating. So for those who and this is hitting on recruiting, say, they're not getting any 4 stars, or they're not who are they getting? They're getting average guys with no offers. Well, these average guys with no offers are now playing in the NFL, making hundreds of millions of dollars. So obviously, like you said, Matt Campbell deserves a lot of praise and a lot of respect for the way he was able to develop players like Will McDonald, Brock Purdy, Brees Hall from mid-average 3 stars into NFL superstars, and that's exactly what Will McDonald is, and is going to be in the NFL in the coming years. And so, and like you said, it sucks. He's on the Jets. Maybe he gets traded. Maybe he, whatever. But even then and there, he's still making plays. He's still all over the field. Pass rushing, sacking quarterbacks, and all that. So Will McDonald, unanimously number one defensive lineman in Iowa State history.